Welcome, inquisitive souls. I'm your host, Cyan, and this is the Age of Alchemy Podcast. Episode 1 is called The Organism. Carl Sagan once said, "A new consciousness is developing which sees the earth as a single organism and recognizes that an organism at war with itself is doomed." Sagan's message highlights the importance of recognizing our connection with the earth and the need for collective responsibility to ensure that we and our planet are sustained. It is a call for humanity to work together in harmony with the environment rather than in opposition to it, and to avoid catastrophic consequences for our shared home. I choose to take an even broader perspective to this mechanism, simply to gain a deeper understanding within the concept of interrelation between us and the unseen universe, not just the earth, and what our lives were to look like if we were conscious of our role within the grand organism at play. An egg within an egg within an egg, playing into the fractal of multiplicity. How does one visualize the concept of impermanence while maintaining the thought of it all being a part of an organism? This concept seems to be a challenge to accept, to say the least. And in my experience, when brought up in a topic of conversation, I notice it's almost upsetting for some. To wrap our head around the never-ending is indeed impossible. But shouldn't impossibility be the driving force behind our pursuit of knowledge, creativity, wisdom, and understanding? We may not get to an end point, but that's because there isn't one. When trying to grasp that I am a part of a microcosm and macrocosm of a carefully structured intelligence all leaning toward the direction of continuous evolution, art has a way of translating the intentionality behind that design. And I think it's what has subconsciously pulled me into art and self-expression since maybe about 4 years old. There are artists' work I admire, like Alex Grey, that somehow were able to relay infinite worlds and realities living within each other. His work being used in the music video Vicarious by the band Tool perfectly displayed, in my opinion, the textile of the eternal, while at the same time in some sort of containment within what the Hermetics call the all. And if you haven't seen that music video, I highly recommend checking it out. In other words, while we humans are each experiencing and influencing different vantage points of a collective hive mind, like a musician in an orchestra, there is a grand symphony at play, only to a song that never ends. So if we are all a part of an organism, then how exactly are we all connected? This goes back to my memory bank of being maybe about 8 or 9 years old and watching Osmosis Jones. It quickly brings the viewer into a universe of what it would be like to be a molecular entity inside of a human body. And each of those cells, viruses, or bacteria were sentient beings, just as alive as the body they were sustaining life to. I think of humanity in this sense, and there are so many ways to look at it. For instance, we have our industrial workers in society, working in warehouses and factories, electricians, plumbers, engineers, all supporting the infrastructure of our communities and countries around the world. Each job is very specific, and to say the least, they're running a tight ship, just to ensure that the power and water supply is continuously running. Without going into further detail, I'm sure you get the point, and can acknowledge the importance of these workers so that we can all take hot showers and are able to listen to this podcast right now. The point is, we are all building something, participating, contributing, and that doesn't just default you to the job that pays the bills. It also means that you are playing a role when you sing, paint, cook, dance, raise children, run a marathon, overcome depression, or hold the door open for someone. It really doesn't matter. You are contributing to a larger whole simply by existing. And this brings me to the point Carl Sagan made when he said a new consciousness is developing. in regards to the organism. Now that we have gone over some of the abstract intricacies of a somehow infinite organism at play and acknowledged that we are all connected to each other through our existence and efforts, I think it's safe to say that if you're still listening, maybe you're like me and are infatuated with or intrigued by the concept of the organism. Or maybe you're just seeing what this podcast is all about. Either way, I wanted to ask you if you have this internal feeling that something is afoot in our world. Because to highlight the second part of Sagan's quote, an organism at war with itself is doomed, we had to first acknowledge that we are indeed an organism. Is this the end or the beginning? Whatever your beliefs are about what exactly is happening in our world, I think most of us can agree that this strange time we are in is telling us something, that there is some sort of shift happening. If you pay even a little attention to current events, you would know that a lot of things are changing, but we aren't exactly sure which direction this is going in. On one hand, we have world leaders promising their solutions to many of our problems in an eerie undertone that sounds a lot like an Orwellian dystopia. And on the other hand, we see a collective passion growing for truth, creativity, and spiritual inquiry. So that begs the question, is this the end or the beginning? Why not both? We know very well the cyclical nature of our world, of the human body, of the cosmos, patterns that lay out right in front of us. It seems to me that we are most definitely witnessing an end to old ways, and a rise in a technological era. AI, for example, is now being accessed by just about everyone with the internet. It is transforming every industry and quickly being relied on as a tool for many different needs. Slowly but surely, we are seeing robots strolling our streets, or patrolling for that matter. Virtual reality and drones dropping off Amazon packages. Media is becoming much more accessible to the average person, and just about anyone can be their own journalist. There is a growing lack of trust in mainstream media networks and a surge in exposés around controversial topics, all while pushback and censorship attempts to silence those who are asking questions. This may be the very first time we are seeing the wheels start changing direction in this ever-evolving machine. On the contrast, as technology is taking root, there is an urge for what Terence McKenna refers to as the archaic revival. It could be seen as a silver lining because millennials especially are growing tired of the hustle and bustle of societal pressures to further augment into an age of technology and seeking more traditional ways of living. With tiny houses, homestead living, biohacking, cold plunges, and grounding, or even ancient spiritual practices resurfacing, McKenna's prediction was not far off at all. In fact, it is precisely what we see happening. Granted, this is not to discount the abundance of knowledge we have gained from the internet, networking with like-minded individuals, or the opportunity to inspire others with the help of technology. The possibilities have been proven endless. However, the point I want to make is that there is indeed a cycle to our dilemma. And it happens to be very complicated when we try to understand what will happen next. While old ways are dying, yet some reemerge, and new ways are being born, yet unaccepted, the simplest way to put it is that we are at a crossroads. And what I see at the center of the crossroad is that we are extremely divided as a people. Heck, we are even divided from the natural world. And as Sagan said, we should not be surprised if more destruction takes place when we continue down a path of us versus them. There are many examples of division growing all around us. One could be the division that comes from the topic of diet. While we see an ever-growing urge to switch everyone to plant-based diets on the consensus of it being better for the environment and our health, we simultaneously have the extreme opposite becoming more popular in the carnivore movement. Whichever you may subscribe to, both are naturally going to come with pissing off a lot of people on the other end. Just scroll through the comments on any post promoting one of these diets, and you will quickly see hundreds of thousands of people bickering back and forth and insulting each other in an attempt to change each other's mind or just blow off some steam to total strangers. The tension is real, and being someone who has explored a little of both diets, I now find myself somewhere in the middle with an ever-evolving perspective on diet. This example is mild compared to other controversial debates, creating more and more fear, division, and suspicion amongst the masses. Some of which, once dissected, just reveal themselves to be some kind of sinister agenda, with the only goal being to further create division and generate wealth to a select few. We know that war is never a good thing, yet a select group of individuals benefit from it. Meanwhile, the civilians and soldiers in these areas on either side of the debacle are all suffering, while the rest of the world watches in terror, choosing one side or the other, thus perpetuating the us versus them mentality. So, I don't blame a person one bit if they are mortified by the outcome of division or war, to think that Armageddon is just around the corner, because when things get ugly enough in one part of the world, that is when it is easiest for us to see just how fragile and connected we really are. It takes horrible things to happen to show us what's really at stake. The real question we should be asking is it possible that we are all the same organism? If so, how would a world look that has this as its fundamental focus? The objective with this podcast is to explore abstract concepts, ask meaningful questions about our existence, and as a result, hopefully, extend our hand to the common good, as a conduit to a new era we all feel emerging. What is this new era exactly? That, in my opinion, is entirely up to the collective. We can choose to allow fear and suspicion to drive our organism into destruction, or we can choose to allow hope to transmute darkness into light, allowing ingenuity, science, and philosophy to transform our entire nature, thus creating the Age of Alchemy. Here is an original poem I wrote with the same title of this first episode, called The Organism. Finally, in this light I see it, the vast cosmic sea, crashing like a wave against God's feet. And God, the essence of life itself. For the orchestra plays while tyrants pray, for the monk weeps while lions sleep. The harp is tuned in the midst of the chaos. What is this? What is it to be aware of the epicenter of it all? Such contradictions of this dualistic experience leaves one feeling alone, confused, enamored, galvanized, repulsed, scared, inspired, ultimately tired. The full spectrum of emotions and its enigmatic form is you. Must there be two sides to this coin? The double helix of the microcosm symbolizing the necessity for it all, written in our DNA. For light and darkness breeds life. This is our dilemma, and there is no roadmap. We can look to the ancient texts and the medicines in our rich jungles. We can look to each other, but it all points inward to humble. Connection. I see it now. All that is wrong points to what is right. Then we ask ourselves, how? We have severed our connection with each other and ourselves in the denial that discomfort and comfort can't live synergistically. But somehow it does. The fear of accepting that this existence encompasses both dark and light is what can be no more. I repeat, the fear of accepting that this existence encompasses both dark and light is what can be no more. In God is unique to the individual, dancing at the edge of chaos while the guitar's solo roars, gardening at the center of your cells while they travel through your physical nature, embedded into your deepest dreams and holding you in a night of terror. So who can really tell you what God is other than God? This organism that we are all a part of, its complexity and all its wonders, just is. It flows through you, around you. It is you. The mystery shall not be feared, but revered. Let go, free yourself, and soon you will be on course and reconnect with the source, the organism itself, of course. I want to end this podcast episode with gratitude for whoever has listened this far into the end. I hope that it's provided you some kind of inspiration or internal questions you'd like to ask, and just reflection in general, because this podcast is, after all, for the inquisitive souls. I technically believe that everybody's inquisitive to some degree. Some of us want to admit it more than others. Honestly, this podcast has taken me a long time to put out there because I just did not have the confidence to do so before. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope you stay tuned for my second episode called The Dream. Have a great day, everybody. God bless.